This man is amazing. I've seen him faithful, loyal to BB and Underground alike. Put your hands together for Mike the Poet.
Mike,
Poem for Shihan. A few weeks ago, I saw a poetry show that left me so inspired. In fact, many of you were there. And after this poetry show, I was so inspired that I began rushing home, thinking about making myself a better person. Not just a better poet, but a better person. And I was so inspired by this poetry show that I rushed home and I began working on what would inevitably be the greatest poem that I had ever written. My health. I began to write my health. You see, I have struggled with weight issues my entire life, even losing 50 pounds or more at a time, only to gain it back just like that. And they say that fat people are funny, and it's hard to disagree because there have been plenty, but I'm going to put it to you like this, you see, there's one thing that every overweight person knows, and that is if you struggle with weight issues, you are bound to be the butt of many jokes. And so you might as well learn to be funny, right? It's a coping mechanism. But since I believe that poor eating habits and obesity are amongst the greatest concerns affecting our culture today, it is no longer a laughing matter to me. In fact, I think about it more tragically since I am one of those people addicted to the foods that are bad for me. And sometimes we need a little help to kick our bad habits, and I find that encouragement through poetry. So like I said, I left Shihan's show and I was so inspired that I began writing my health. I began cleaning out my pantry, knowing that this poem couldn't be squeezed in between the perfect straight blue lines found inside a recycled composition notebook. And I knew that this poem would have to force my listeners to read between the proverbial lines to find the place where this poem connects to them. Now, this poem could never be written on paper. Well, this poem would have to be written on my internal organs. And knowing that my body is a temple, a church, it is no wonder why we call them organs. Because inside of our bodies, we possess the instruments to play the music of our choosing. You see, this poem was going to be written and played on my organs. It would be written on my heart with less cholesterol and played from my lungs with less smoke, with less sugary drinks to chew up my teeth, gums, and throat. It would be written on my bladder and on my kidneys, on my large and small intestine, and on those scary places that we just don't want to mention. The dark places in the trenches. It'd be written in my veins and on my muscles. And on my largest organ of them all, the skin. The skin is the largest organ on the human body. And if I work hard enough, and if I'm so blessed, one day this poem will be written on every frown and on every wrinkle, on every smile and on every dimple, every scar and every blemish. And one day I'll be so good at this poetry I won't even say ish. I'll just stand up here and make faces. And you will still lift the message from my faces, receiving every line and every traces of the places that I've lived and the bases that I've covered in this game of hits and chases, ups and downs, chance and choices, and you will still hear me through God's silent, chosen voices. See, isn't that what this life is all about? I mean the chance and the choices part. You see, you live with the choices you make and you die letting chance dictate your mistakes. And I must admit, I've made a few mistakes. For one, I've just gone past the 3-minute mark. And for two, I said this was a poem for Shihan. But really, I must admit that I lied, because actually I tried to reach every young mind in here, hoping that one day you might find yourself on this stage trying to describe an emotion that you otherwise may try and hide. See, poetry provokes. I learned that from that scribe. And this poem is for everyone. And this poem is me, because this poem is alive.